Everybody was kung fu fighting, but that shit went fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening.
What I'm going to tell you has something to do with how sometimes it's necessary to go a long distance out of the way in order to come back a short distance correctly, or maybe I think it has something to do with that. That is the beginning line of a big monologue that I'm memorizing right now from Edward Albee's The Zoo Story. And this is why I've not been making videos. I've been working on the craft. I've been working on acting. I am enrolled in what we call the gymnasium. It's an actor's school or a studio, if you will. The same like the ones you've heard about over years past. This is a YouTube show about cars, and today we're taking one of the lessons here about the long distance that we travel in an essay, a video essay that I'm now going to title Love Makes You Do Crazy Things. And this is the story of the XC90 V8 Sport and the transmission saga. We are 7 repair attempts in. So grab a coffee. I've got my Lottaburger hazelnut. I'm gonna walk you through the entire cost of ownership of the car and the journey that the last 6 months have been. But first, we gotta start back at square one. There are more videos down below. I will be referencing to them, and you can go ahead and click on those at your leisure. Here we go. Onwards and upwards, I always say. I've run out of runway.
So we're going to welcome you again to Albuquerque, and if you're sitting by a window, go ahead and close the meter, please shut those window shades, open up air vents, keep the airplane full for any kind of passengers.
I'm gonna share with you a story about, oh my goodness, it's dry out here. I'm gonna share with you a story about how it's been 6 months and 8 transmission repair attempts later. I think she's finally ready to hit the road and come back home. It is so dry out here. How did anybody live here for 20 years? Huh. It's Christmas in July. And this little drummer boy says, "Do you see what I see?"
The whole drivetrain out of the car.
I missed my buddy and I missed my car. You know, your baby seat matches the leather with the white stripes?
I know. It's that car now. I had to crease it in.
Yes. Well, hopefully he didn't.
No, he did not. He made sure of it. You might find some straight Cheerios somewhere.
That's all good.
And part of a rocket ship.
Hey, will you downshift for me? Wow. It does that without crying. Fantastic.
Rub it.
Oh,
Rub it. Oh, he's rubbing it good.
I was just reminiscing on all my paperwork. Let's go through papers. Let's shut down the navigation here. That navigation in 2007, it was
state of the art, bro.
It sure was. Here's my dealer sticker. Favorite thing about the car, 58 grand, and that nav system was $2,000. Adjusted for inflation, it's over $2,000. Here's the story, all about how my XC90 got turned upside down and the transmission came out several times, and stuff right there, because we had an order of operations before it went back to Bel Air. The valve covers are coming up again because our front timing case has a leak on it. So the repair cost for the valve covers in 2020 at 180,000 miles, $652. It's funny because the gasket was 38 bucks a piece. And what did we say on the phone today the gasket cost was? $75 each. So part prices have also inflated. Thank you very much. Thanks, Obama. Are we still doing that? But first, priorities.
Give me my bananas.
4 wagons, 1 R, and the Red Dragon. This is a lot, Soren. I love it.
I hit all the controls in the wall, so you go.
Oh, yeah, no wires, dude.
No wires.
Well done. You're in the attic again. I missed the wind. But look at these clouds, man. This place just gets some drama in the skies. Look at this price. I'm paying $3 more out there. Yeehaw. compiler named Mark, fan of the channel, friend of the show, has, Soren does this thing where he locks his cars now. I get it. And look at that little IPD sticker down there. Yeah, and then Soren's got this wagon here. I was just getting at the fact that this sunset's gonna be gorgeous in a minute, and normally I'd have a tripod set up, do the nice time lapse, but I don't have any equipment today. This is my first time out here as just a vacation. Like, there's no work. I mean, if you consider this work, maybe, but I don't have a repair on it. I just paying the bill. I don't know what to do with that light pole.
Let's put it this way, I'd rather do the timing chain on an LR3 than do a engine swap H2.
It's another day of sun in New Mexico. Today we're dropping off the XC90 here because she's going to go in for a little bit of service. Today they're going to be working on the front timing cover seals, and those require the valve covers also to come off, which is a shame because I had just done the valve covers maybe a year and a half ago. These dead XC90s. So sad. Oh, a saffron. Support local business. Look at that. It's beautiful green, silver, black, saffron. Then we got, I don't know what you call it, the P1 copper, and then boom, red dragon. It's bothering me that I just made a 58-minute recording talking about the complete cost of ownership of the XC90, and I managed to tell it to Soren in 3 minutes. So, here's our 3-minute version. 2007 XC90 V8 Sport. I bought it at 180,000 miles in August of 2020. That's 2 years ago. Listed at $6,500, it sold for $5,500. I negotiated the price down to $4,800. It needed a transmission because there were some codes. I got a quote for a used trans, $3,000, and I said, hey, split the difference with me so that I don't feel like I bought a lemon. And they said, okay, I'll give you $1,500 back. Total purchase price, $3,300. Here's some services that I did on the car. Diagnostics, inspection, transmission flush, but it was only a drain and fill. They billed me for 5 quarts. Oops, got the code to go off, so I did smog, although it failed. Then I did smog later with a retest, and it won. It won. For $900 and 70, FCP, did brake, suspension hoses, old maintenance stuff, you know, air filter, fuel filter, wipers, etc., plastic pieces in the car. And then I went on and did title and registration at $192. In November, a few months later, oil change, tires with a replacement of one that got a nail in it, for a grand total that year spent of $5,268, 1 year of ownership, $5,560 if you're counting the the registration fees and all the smog stuff. 4,000 miles driven about, if you care about the cost per mile, it was $1.30 before registration or $1.36 afterwards. Moving on, 2021. Knowing that I was going to loan this car, which was at the time my second vehicle, to a friend, I was driving, I think, the Prius. I ended up getting all the fluids changed, both for him and for myself. $468. Did the valve cover, the intake manifold, gaskets, common leaks, $653. Later it came back. It just sat most of the time when it was out in Nevada, but it came back and the people freaked out because the check engine light came on for the transmission again. Had to tow it home, but I renewed the registration and it just sat through November. In December it needed a new battery. Mileage driven that year, pretty low, about 3,000 miles if you care. Cost per mile, around 42 or 37 if you're going with the registration costs. 2020 and 2021, cost of ownership, total of the car, purchase price and everything, $65.51, but just under $7,000 because I'm going to start counting all my registration fees. Not calculating gas, but we've got everything from oil changes, tires, etc. 7,000 miles driven, about 7,500, 87 cents or 93 cents a mile. Now, 2022, at 187,000 miles, I brought it to New Mexico in 2022. January 24th, dropped it off at 189,000 miles. Our initial estimate was maybe for $2,500, we can get this transmission problem once and for all solved. Best case scenario, it just needs a valve body. For $890 of labor, $930 valve body, $160 fluid. In February, Valentine's Day, I dropped the car off, or the car was dropped off as I went back to California. Soren, my liaison or advocate for this whole repair, dealt with the shop from here on out. The valve body didn't work. It needed a warranty replacement. They ate the labor cost, which was not good for them, and then they put it back in and the transmission said, oops, our torque converter failed. Your 190-mile, 1,000-mile transmission is just too far gone. So for $1,000 and now March 24th, we can give you a shop transmission. These are crossed out because, well, you'll see foreshadowing. So the used shop transmission was the first time that the trans came out after doing the valve body twice, and that was April 14th. There was a leak at the torque converter bell housing with the new shop transmission. They thought, oh, it must have just had a bad seal. Let's pull it out, replace the seal. They did that, and they said, oh no, it's still leaking. But the R&R to swap a trans every time is $1,342. And they, however, since it was their fault with the leak and the seal, they said, okay, well, we'll eat the labor on that again. So they've already ate the labor on valve body and they ate the labor on transmission. But they put it back in with the new torque converter seal and it still leaked. And they said, it must be the torque converter. Oh no. By now we're into May. So after the seal, the transmission comes out and they put in a new torque converter. This is actually our third R&R. So May 18th to 24th, I'm getting kind of fed up. I need the car back. I was supposed to let my brother drive it as I drive the S60R. And that way we can keep both in the family, you know? And if I needed a big car, I could just take the 90. The S60R gets better fuel economy and it's a 6-speed. It's so much more fun to drive. So from there, we bought a new torque converter because the seal wasn't working. So $278 plus $30 shipping. The transmission came out and went back in for the third time. Still only billed one time at $1,300 for the labor, plus about $2,000 for the valve body stuff. So we're kind of within what I thought was going to be good territory. I told myself at the beginning, if this transmission repair is over $7,000, that's more than a full rebuild was estimated from a California shop last summer. So it wouldn't be worth it to pay more for a used transmission. The engine is good, but the car might just be too far gone. I don't think it's over that value. However, with inflation and everything else, we're constantly asking ourselves, should I just buy a new car or is this one fine? Well, here's what the next step was. They said, we've got another used transmission on the floor. Oops, that was a dud. It had a broken bell housing or a crack somewhere in the aluminum. There's a company that wasn't LKQ, but something like it, that would give them a used transmission 6-month warranty. And they said, okay, we'll do that. My concern at this point, all the exhaust pipes, the lower control arms, the hoses, etc. Every time the subframe gets dropped and removed and put back, things get stressed, CV axles, like that. So I'm kind of worried that there could be more problems every time this has to get redone and redone. In addition to that, they're losing money, I'm losing patience. And money as well. All right, so the LKQ or whatever the company was sent them, unfortunately, the wrong trans. That was the beginning of June of this year. Now, 2003 to 2007 XC90s have one transmission, which costs $1 sign. 2007 and a half onwards use a different with $2 signs. We found an eBay transmission on June 14th for $1,321.65. eBay, baby. This was our 4th time the transmission was coming out of the car, but our 7th repair attempt. So on the 24th, the work began, And for some miscellaneous charges, we've got gas, we've got labor for swapping the valve body between transmissions, both very generous, low numbers. Miscellaneous fees, $400 in taxes from the 27th through the 29th, all the way into July 1st. We have a total bill for the transmission now completely working with a new torque converter, with a new valve body, and a warranty from the eBay seller or whatever that was, $5420.79. July 1st, it was finished. $7,000 was that cutoff line. We're well below the limit. Sweet. Now, this is 1 year later from the return journey from Nevada where the transmission was abandoned on the side of the road, or the whole car. They told me when they were under there doing some stuff that the front timing case has an oil leak. And I've got an 800-mile drive home to LA, and I said, I didn't want to, put this off a year, but can you guys do it? And they said, no. And then later they said, yes, we've got time. We'll make it a priority for you. So what's the price for that oil leak? $16.16. Ooh, that's too bad because they've got to do the valve cover gaskets, which I already did before, but the price now of the part has doubled. Thanks, inflation. Hail, Brandon. Timing cover seal. This is the big one in the front, but while you're there, please replace the serpentine belt tensioner. This is a known problem. If that tensioner breaks, the belt breaks. The belt wraps around the crank pulley. It could take the timing chain with it if it should break into the pulley. That's no good. So that means add the $5420 for the transmission with the $1616, and our total is now $7,000 for this car. So here's the S60R. Exterior is interior 4 out of 10, exterior 5 out of 10. Maybe it's a 4 too, but I love that glitter paint job. This car needs a lot of work. For $6650, here's the breakdown. The clutch, $2350, the radio, about $300 for a good new head unit that is a correct style with an auxiliary port, because I'm so tired of CDs. Airbag recall, $50 is the price. The recall's free, but this is the price of the replacement cover so that I can retain my original R airbag. And the timing belt with the oil leaks and oil seals all around, that's $1,200. The brakes, all four corners, FCP's kit is about $800. I would do the labor on that, but just the parts alone are expensive. Gauge clusters, Zemodex doesn't have the gauge clusters anymore listed on their website. And they have the P80, the P1, and the P3s, but no mention of P2 stuff. I wonder if they've just stopped because the P2s are such a headache. But if they could do it, I split the difference in cost from all the other Volvo gauge clusters. $350, it's got an issue with one of the LEDs and it's throwing a code in the Vita software. So I'd like to fix that, which is very common for P2 cars. The rear strut, it's $400 just for the strut, so the labor involved with all that, and I'm told it's very difficult by people like Robert DIY, and I won't do the work on that myself. I also don't want to do the exhaust manifold myself, just because it's fear of a 200,000 mile car with cooling lines and oil lines going to it. So I figure, it's about $800 to do the exhaust manifold gaskets. There's an intermittent check engine light for that. All in all, for $6650, the S60R offers a mediocre interior exterior, whereas the XC90 is probably like twice these. It's like a 8 out of 10 and a 9 out of 10. We'll just be generous to those. So it's really a good interior. Of course, it could use some upgrades in the audio department, but it doesn't have airbag recalls. It doesn't need a timing belt. I just did the brakes, so it's already in there. The gauge cluster is good. It's actually a little prettier too. The struts are good. I did the front suspension stuff. The exhaust manifold doesn't have an issue, although there is now an exhaust leak, which is hopefully getting repaired at the same time. The car is currently back at this shop. So what is this trade-off value between owning a car versus paying monthly for a lease agreement? Now here is our final bit. So we know that our 2020 and 2021 totals for the car were sitting at about $7,000. Here's the 2022 transmission and the oil leak total, $7,036. Add that all up and we have ourselves a $13,500 or $14,000 cost of ownership for a car for the last 2 years. So from August 2020 to it's going to be August pretty soon of 2022. That's a lot of money, $7,000 a year for a used Volvo. Cost per mile, we're not going to worry about that now because it's going to be skewed in one direction. Hopefully with all of the investment, I can have plenty of trouble-free miles ahead so that I can continue reducing these amounts to drop below $1 per mile. That would be great. Here's the real kicker though. as perhaps you're questioning, or your spouses might be questioning, why not just get a new car, honey? We don't want to deal with used cars and all the drama associated with it, especially this 6-month period of drama. And here's the thing, an XC40 T5 regular middle grade, middle road package, 36 months is $655 for that 36-month lease agreement. That's 3 years, and you need a $4,000 down payment. $27,580 in 3 months is what, or 3 years is what you'd be paying for that. And at the end of that day, you don't get to keep the car. So I'm half that amount for the 2 years, and I've got full ownership of the car. A repossession won't hurt my credit, and I can use the money for the rainy day fund. But there is a convenience to the month-to-month debt of being under a lease agreement, and there's a warranty for major repairs versus me. If I do have a problem with the engine locking up, I'd be forking out $4 or $5 grand for another V8. And at the end of the day, the fuel economy, going back to that S60R, the fuel economy is so much better on the R, but the XC90 has storage. It's got a 3rd row seat. I can haul engines in the back easily. And the V8 is just a gorgeous sound. So the slight increase in, let's say, the 30 mpg here versus the 20 to 25 mpg and the 90, it's not worth the difference, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the total package. So we did it. Well, it wasn't 5 minutes, it wasn't 3 minutes, but we got through the points, and I'm really glad that I saved myself a lot of time editing. I'm back in New Mexico, and I'm excited to see if they can get this oil leak for $1,600 fixed by end of day today or beginning of tomorrow. I drove the car. It's got 100 miles on it now with the new transmission. There's no leaks. There is an exhaust leak, so they're going to be fixing that. If I have anything to say about it, it's a full project. So that car, in like 1 year reaching 18 grand, it doesn't seem too absurd to say that for a daily driver, and I don't drive that much anymore, so the fuel economy thing, it is what it is. This is, I'm convinced, a good investment, and that's because it's passion red. We call it the Volvo Rescue Channel here for a reason. Passion is synonymous with love, and sometimes love makes you do crazy things.